Okay, hi people. Sorry for the 2 minutes delay. Yeah. Okay, we'll be starting like in real soon. Okay. Okay, so welcome to this space. Yeah, so I'm Ronnie, the MCVP PM, so that's not the main point. So today I'm going to talk about like a little bit of the context on how to do better team management, okay? So I think from what I understand is that the target audience today, mostly of you would be project directors, and like most of you are going to be leading a team, and or you would be at like most probably handling like project like uh managing your team, be it like your EPs or your OC members. Okay, if you are members, I think the content of it will still be very relevant to you because no matter how like it's still in a team context. Okay, so moving on next. So, but when we talk about team management, so what usually do we understand about team management, right? So I think, especially in hindsight, like when we emphasize a lot about like team experience and stuff. So what does it mean by team management? So if you Google about it, so this is definitely the definition of team management. Okay, it's the ability of an individual. Basically, is the ability of an individual to coordinate a group of people or individual to perform a task. Okay, so simple as that. Have one person to be the coordinator to coordinate between a group of people to perform tasks so that you can achieve like the end outcome of having this team to exist in the first place. Simple, right? So I think the question would be like, but why do we need like this such a complicated thing to talk about it? So when talk about like in this like why do we want to have a better team management, or why do we talk about team management in project context? I think it's just very simple. Like do you still remember your project's objectives? So every of your project objectives is just linked to this thing. Okay, the SDGs goals. So every of your projects, when you are planning for your DMF, when you are designing it, there's actually an objective of like solving a targets for the SDG. So that's the project objectives. Okay. So basically, a team management is about a team, and then in layman term is that how can you build a team, like a random bunch of people that come together because of the project. You build them to be a performing team so that you can achieve your objectives of your projects. Okay. So the question might be like turning from why, you would be asking how to do it. So when talking about better team management, how to make sure that we can lead a team better. So I will just introduce a very simple concept, and I think if you are in you are students of business courses, you will definitely come across with these things. So it's a very simple concept called team stages. So basically in team, when you're forming a team, or when a team is assisted, they will be undergo these 5 different stages. So it's starting from forming, where the like the traits of the forming team when your team is at that stage would be you will have little agreement, you will have you have unclear purpose, and you have just little guidance and directions. Okay, that's the time when you will be seeking for guidance and also direction. So you will move forward to, after forming, you will move forward to storming. So in storming phase is when conflicts happen, and but at the same time it's also the time when you have the increase of clarity of purpose. And next is that that's the time or moment when you have power struggles, like you start to not like having a good terms with maybe some of the members, and maybe it's not between you as a team members to the members, but maybe it happens between like members to members. And then what necessary the like what is needed the most in this process is definitely coaching. So when after storming stage, your team would the team would move into norming stage, is when everyone comes to agreement and consensus, because they have clearer roles and responsibility. And how to make that happen is actually making sure that facilitations is there all the time. Okay, only after norming, like, yeah, you get to know each other, we are cool with each other already, we started to accept it, like we started to accept each other strengths and weaknesses, we are getting better at like getting along, then you will only start to be a performing team. Okay, whereas the characteristic of performing team is that when you have a clear vision and purpose and you focus on goal achievement, and that only happens when you have a very clear delegation process. Okay, after that it will be coming to the end, is when you completed your task and everyone will have a good feelings about their achievements, and then at the same time it's the time that you would get like recognition. And after that it will be like the time that when your uh, team will be adjourned. Okay, so looking into this is that, so the questions here is that if that's the case, then uh, why is it so important is because you have to create an environment that allows this to happen quickly. So I think the key highlight of these team stages is that the conclusion I want to draw is that it would happen eventually, but what's more important is that it has to happen quickly, because if you look at the three elements, the five elements of it, we all wanted a performing team to happen, because that's the time when, because this is the stage that will help you to achieve your goal. This is the only stage that, if you look through the other five stages, is that this is the only stage when your team are very clear with vision and purpose, and this is the only stage when people are focusing on goal achievement. And in other words, is that when talking about goal achievement in project context, is that this is the stage that is desired because it will uh, bring your projects to a success. And in other words, is that you will achieve your project objectives and the targets that you want to solve through your project. Okay. So then we have to look into the three stages before performing. Is that forming, storming, and norming. These are the stages that you can't skip. Okay. So team stages are not the thing that maybe like you want to skip it and then directly go into performing phase. Like it is not happening in that way. So therefore, in talking about like building your team, if you look into like the three team stages is forming, storming, and norming. The main element is actually to make sure that clear team purpose in throughout these three processes, is that what is needed, if you look at all the elements, is that you need to make sure that you have a very clear team purpose that relates to everyone. Second is that you have to have a very clear goals and strategies. Then you have to have very clear roles and JD defined. And following out would be you need to have a very clear team rule and bottom line. And then you will need to have a very clear team routine. So how does it interrelated if you map out like the elements to the characteristics of the team stages, then you would know actually your role as a team leader, like being a team builder, is that you have to understand everyone's purpose in the team so that you can actually connect and give them a clear picture on like what's the team visions, what the project visions, and what's the purpose of having the team to be existed in the first place. Second thing is that as the team builder or the team leaders, you during the building phase of the team, is that you have to make sure that you give a very clear guidance, directions, and training uh, to the members in your team. Thirdly is that facilitate members' experience to make sure that they are clear with their purpose and contribution. So the next one is, I think, is also the one that most of the time like people wouldn't put so much focus on, is hold accountable to the results, track and measure members' performance. So how the last one comes in is actually through the processes in between it. Like for example, sometimes like why conflict happen is because there's no proper measurement of performance. Sometimes like why power struggles happen is because there's no clear accountable system in the team. Okay, so it's the same with clear role and responsibility. So if you don't get that clear in the first place, most of the time is that people would when during in your norming stage, then if you don't get that clear again, then most probably your team would go back to storming stage. Okay, so again, like the thing is that you can't skip these stages, right? But what you can do is actually by doing all the things that I mentioned just now is that you can actually minimize the damage that it will bring to the team. Okay, you are not skipping the stages, but you are just trying to minimize the damage that it will bring to your team. So for example, why do we need to have like all the team purpose, goals, strategies, roles, and JD defined? Is just to make sure that we would set a clearer purpose and direction to the team, first thing. Second thing is that we would minimize the conflicts that would happen in the team. In this way of saying like minimizing is because people would have clearer roles and responsibilities stated in their mind when they first join the team, or lay out very clearly to everyone so that everyone would know like what's their role in the team and they would know what's their contribution. Okay, so again, like not to skip the stages, but just to minimize the damages that it will bring to the team if, for example, storming happen in the team. Okay, and we want like the end objective of implementing those things is to make sure that we can actually make it through quickly to performing stage. Okay, so when it comes to performing team, the characteristic is very like the traits of performing team is that you will have clear vision, focus on goal and achievement, which is the thing that would only benefit your projects more, and also delegation. So in these two stages, if we look at it, is that the common things that need to happen is with clear accountability system. Just now we have mentioned about hold accountable of the performance, and right now is with clear accountability system where it includes like delegating, monitoring, and evaluating. Okay, so after that is being done, then would only be coming into like the process of members are being able to complete the task and then would be being recognized and rewarded according to the performance that they have. Okay, so when we are talking about the accountability system in the team, definitely first thing is that you have to set your purpose and direction very clearly. Okay, first is to communicate your purpose. Second thing is that you have to set your goal, because without a goal, basically your members wouldn't know where they are heading to. Okay, so it's either set a goal, communicate a purpose, or the other way around would work as well. So communicate a purpose, set a goal, and then you have to delegate your tasks based on the goal that you have allocated to your members. Okay, set goal, communicate purpose, delegate tasks, and allocate goals, and then you have to monitor and track the progress. Okay, monitor and track the progress as a thought process. And what's often people forget the most is actually the part where you actually give them training and build their capacity in able for them to perform. Okay, so it's not mentioned here, but it mentioned earlier just now, like after setting goal, after communicating the purpose, after delegating tasks, after tracking, after knowing where your members are, what's more important is that you give them training and guidance to build their capacity in order for them to be in the environment that can help them to strive for what they want to do in the team. Okay, training is the most important one. And lastly is where you evaluate their progress and feedback improvement. Okay, so when you are evaluating, definitely is the process when if the members are doing good, then definitely you have to recognize and reward them. And if they are not good enough, then definitely there are points that we can come together and give feedback towards the progress. Okay. So the 5 stages. So what about like being a performing team leader is that definitely have to follow up with members' vision and purpose. So as mentioned just now, the better is that if you can connect it to the jobs that they are doing, that it will be good. Second is that have a very clear accountability tool and system to track and support members' progress. So in that way is that after you delegating tasks, when you are tracking, you have to make sure that you give enough support to your members in terms of training and guidance. Okay? How frequent you are tracking your members' performance, another way of thinking about it is actually how much do you know your members need supports from you. And in other words, is that the tracking that you do, how frequent the tracking that you do is actually showing how much support that you are giving to your members. Okay, because I think most of the time is that we would have a very negative impression towards tracking because it sounds like a huge way of saying that I'm not trusting you. But so far my experience of being a team leader is that if you actually set a very clear expectation in the beginning of the space of asking the members if your team members if they need a space to for you to follow up with them, they would be happy to actually let you know whether they need it or not. Okay, so have a very clear accountability tool and system, and don't forget to delegate tasks to members because as the team leader's role, be like if you remember, like if you still remember the first thing that when I showed in this space is that your role as team leaders as that individual is to coordinate tasks to happen. So that's your role of team leaders is to delegate tasks and making sure that the progress is ongoing and recognize members based on progress and performance. Okay, so those are not something new. It's actually part of team centered element. Okay, so nothing cliche, nothing new, nothing fancy. It's the same thing about team centered. Okay, so if you're members, I'm not so sure if you know about team centered, but basically team centered is like is a series of guidance that team leaders would have every week, like how to certain standards to fulfill in a team as a team leader's responsibility. So the main objective of team standards, as you mentioned just now, is to assist you in better manage your team. First thing, second thing is to make sure that your team is being hold with the responsibility and accountability. Okay, so the thing about it is that for better team management, another question would be like what can support me better in that way. So just now I have been mentioning about uh the team stages, and then I have talked a little bit about like how to build your team, how to make sure that your team is in performing stages. And following up here is that yeah, so if you are with your laptop, I think you can click into the link, you can type the bit.ly into your phone or another tab so that you can actually look at it. Okay, I'll take some time to show you what is it in this tool. So the bit.ly name is bit.ly/IGV, I small letter, GV big capital, dash VD dash team standards, TS. Okay, I think, yeah, the bit.ly is there. Okay. Okay, thanks for rating me. Okay, so if you look into here, like this would be definitely the interface of the title of the spreadsheet is yeah, VD helper team standards. So basically this would be showing you like how does it look like for the introduction layout. So basically it is sort of like telling you like in a way of introducing like why VD team standards is important. So that's one thing that is included here is actually understand the brutal fact on current IGV situation is that members always burn out during project, and then the retention rate of members after realization is very low. So usually the questions to ask is that why members burn out and why members are not satisfied with their experience and left. So I think these are the things that these are the questions that we try to answer as well when we are creating this tool. So we actually try to get feedback from the current IGVP so that we can improve on the tool as well. So what we have found out is that another resources that you can refer to is definitely these resources that is in a spreadsheet. Okay, so try not to edit anything in this spreadsheet first because this is basically the masterpiece of it. Uh, and for your information, if you want to duplicate these spreadsheets, better consult your VPPM beforehand because there's a specific way that we wanted it to be in your project too, so that it would be better for you to refer as well. Okay, so if you think that it would be great if you can start to duplicating it in your project too, for me is feel free to do so. But just to make sure that you actually let your VPPM to know about like where are you duplicating it. Okay. So yeah, so these are external resources that we actually included some link here that we find it uh, would be very helpful to teach you certain skills on like how to manage a team in detail, like why trust, 5 dysfunctions of team, and also about meeting even. Okay. So yeah, so in this team status tracker is just separated into uh pre-project and also uh during project. Okay, for the things that you have to do. So the thing is actually very simple. So every week you just need to fill out like yes or no for the elements that you have been doing or not. Okay, so this is just a tool that serve a purpose to remind you on like what are the things that actually needs to happen in order to achieve like in order to help to build a performing team. Okay, so we actually break it down into week 1, week 2, and following out with the 6 weeks projects. So every week there will be specific things that would specific responsibilities as team leaders that you need to complete with your members. So if you look into the elements, these are the elements that I've mentioned just now regarding the element of building a team. Okay, so it's the same with like providing guidance is more on like practical learning elements, and then understanding your members purpose, that's what I mentioned just now as well. So and during project I think what's more important is definitely on reviewing the progress, where this is when your accountability system happens. Okay, and giving recognition based on that, and again like individual tracking meeting to happen. Okay, and feedback. Okay, so every week there might be a slight difference of every week's element. So for me, is that every week, at the beginning of the week, it is better that you can just track through it, the elements. So if you have any specific elements that you might not sure how to conduct it, you can just refer to the notes there. So it's actually all the tips on how to carry out that certain elements. Okay, so for example, for certain part of for certain part of it, like for example, weekly review. So there are so many elements of it, but just to remind you, like these are like these big elements, like the 5 elements that's stated here, are mostly the process that would help you better in making sure that the things happen. The end objective of why do we need to have weekly review happens. Okay, and this would be the side notes that help you better in conducting the specific spaces. Okay, so what we inserted in this space, like in this tool, is that because just now when looking through it, like the common thing that is very important is accountability system. So most of the time, like, we'll be very confused, like what does accountability system means exactly. So it's actually something that's very simple. You have your goal, which is number of complete in terms of IGV perspective, but definitely you would have your goal as your project objectives that needs to complete as well. Okay, so yep. So this would be your 16 standards checklist. Okay, it's a very simple layout, just to remind you that in order to achieve complete, you have to achieve your 16 standards first. Okay, so what would change later on is maybe if you have your VD bucket list, you can actually put it in here as well. Okay, if you have your VD bucket checklist. Okay, so every week, like this tool is only served for 6 weeks purpose. It's only 6 weeks, so it will go according to your projects, project realization period. So week 0 is your preparations part, and week 1 would be the start of your project. Okay, simple as that. So this would be the overall task that you have, things that needs to happen in every week from week 0 until week 7. So if you have things that needs to happen earlier than week 1, you just put it under week 0. Okay, so these are all the tasks that you need to do in week 0. As project directors, what are the things that needs to happen in that week? Your role is to put it all down there. Okay, so underneath is the individual accountability system. So in this individual accountability system, just now I have been mentioning, like, delegation will be your main role as a project director or OCP. So therefore, after listing all these down, here is the part when you have to delegate those tasks to every members. Okay, with specific goals, with specific goals planned. Okay, and then you will update your actual after that. Okay, so it would be listing down all your VD people who help out in VD, be it is your members or is VD helpers. There would all of their names will be under this spreadsheet. So just put it down their name, and then you can start tracking their progress actually using this tool. Okay, so just now I've been like in the introduction page, we actually see that members are actually the main bottleneck in IGV is always like why members are burning out, and then why are they being very not satisfied with their experience. So the main reason of why people are burning out most of the time is because you have very uneven workload for every different members. So some members maybe they are doing more, some members they are just doing very little. So the thing about holding accountable in a team is to make sure that everyone actually have equal high standards that you as the team leaders are holding up. Okay, so it would be a very good guidelines to actually let you to oversee on how is every members doing in the team, so that you make sure that you are uh, you are following up with the things, with the tasks of your members are doing. If, for example, if they are not doing as much as they should, so maybe you need to follow up with them personally before going into the team space and questioning them. Okay, I think understanding your members first when you need to clarify on certain thing, definitely that would be the best touch point is first to go one-to-one first before questioning people under a team environment. Because most of the time, if you directly question them on a team environment, it would be very defensive. But your end objective is not to blame them of not doing their job well, but your main intention is to solve the problem and complete the task. So as team leaders, I think you have to make sure that the objective of every spaces is very clear. As team leaders, you have to make sure that your members are performing tasks, completing their tasks, so that your project outcomes can be achieved. Simple as that. So there definitely will be many human complication happens on, like people will have commitment issues, maybe they would have like competence issues. Those are normal stuff. It definitely would happen in anywhere if you are leading a team. Okay, so the thing about it is that just uh try to, I think this would be a very good guideline for you to refer to in the team standards element, uh just to check it out, like how to do conduct the space properly if you really need that space. Okay, so I think that would be all. So if you have any questions, you can just type it down in the chat box. So I will be checking the questions in the chat box. Okay. Okay, so there's a question that how do you inspire your members to take up higher roles in the future? So I assume that is your VD members, okay? Members, your IGA members. So uh I think for me is that consistent follow up with your members' personal development plan. That's the first thing. Second thing is that to ensure that uh you are very clear on what they want to do in the future. Okay, so it's part of following out with their PhD plan. So the thing about it is that I think when talking about inspire our members to take up higher positions in the future is that uh I think it's just thinking from the perspective as a team members on why are you taking up a higher position in like for the next one or in upcoming future is because like you would have your own reasons, and I think most of the time is that people are always wanted to go for higher position is because it's either they wanted to learn more, or they see what they are going to do in the future, like in that leadership position, is fits to what they want to contribute. So therefore, I think the good start point of understanding whether this person wanted to go far in Isaac is definitely starting from understanding their purpose, understanding how they want to develop in near future, and then the last one is to consistently following up with them regarding their experience in Isaac. So talking about consistently following up with them regarding their experience in Isaac doesn't mean that you don't give them challenging role and environment. You don't give them works to do. But what's more important is that every time when you give them a challenging task to complete after they experience certain intensive environment of working, is that you will be there to support and recap their experience of learning. Okay. So I hope that it answers to your question. Okay, I think if you think that it's not really answering your questions, perhaps you can elaborate more on what are the elements that you don't think is actually answering to it. Okay, so just a little note at the side is that when talking about inspiring people to take out leadership role, is that okay? Talking about like sorry, just now mentioning about like asking people to take out leadership role. Uh, Definitely, if understanding the context is that right now is election period, and if the choice the efforts of nurturing your pipeline or successor is not happening throughout your term, but it's only happening at the end of 2 months, then definitely that's not going to work for people. Maybe if you are lucky, you will get like successor. Otherwise, that it might be the people that is not like is not in your is not the persons that most suitable to the functions. So always like when we talk about succession planning and pipeline nurturing, it's all conscious efforts that you need to put when you first having a team, when you're first being the team leaders. So that would be the long-term ideal pipeline nurturing plan. So if the situation right now is that just because it's election peak, uh and maybe there might be a crisis of in terms of pipeline. So I think the fastest way to solve the problem, you can't force people to take a higher leadership role, because if their experience is very bad in the past, they wouldn't want to take it out at all. So maybe you can tackle people, you can go to talk to people or tackle people that yeah between your members that are that have higher ownership towards the project, and then I think that would be the more appropriate to start with. I think okay, hi Mariam. So there's a question that what are the ways to help the members to not reach the burnout stage and to retain them? So I think I've been mentioning just now, like just roughly, is that when we talk about the accountability system, or when we talk about delegation of tasks, there are like five important stages to take note. So the first one is that set a very clear goal and then communicate the purpose. When I talk about communicating the purpose, is that communicating the purpose uh, of like why these things is important in the first place. So it can be in a team setting or it can be a one-to-one setting. And then after that, you have to delegate tasks to them very clearly. Therefore, that's the reason why the tool is existed, so that people can always refer and have a very clear call to action after every week. Okay. And then following up would be tracking of your members' progress. Okay, tracking of your members' progress. And if you see that they need supports in terms of training and guidance, that's the things that you have to do additionally. Okay. After that is that you have to come back and evaluate the progress. Okay, these 6 steps are the basic steps as a team leader. How do you delegate more effectively in terms of helping your members to grow and develop as well? So I think of why members often reach to burnout stage is all the time what I heard from members mostly is because until the end, there's only 1 or 2 members that overwork. Okay, so members are reaching that stage. First is maybe because you didn't plan your talent, you didn't plan for your capacity enough, that you didn't foresee that you would need to take up that much of manpower during realization period. Okay, if that's the case, then there's something that you can still fix it right now, just to make sure that you recruit enough people for projects. Second thing is that people feel that they are burnt out because they are doing everything by themselves and they are not doing things effectively. And that might be due to very confusing roles and responsibility. And certain people are doing everything, but certain people are not doing anything. Okay, so maybe when they are going around and do take up roles and responsibilities, they are not doing it in a very effective way. So therefore they will be feel like they are working 360 like 24 hours a day, but that's only showing like 7 hours results. So that's the reason why people will feel burnt out as well. So I think if you can fix the process of first getting enough people in the team according to your what your project has planned initially. Second thing is that to make sure that you hold accountable of everyone's progress in the team and hold everyone at the equal standards and properly track the progress of tasks and make sure that you give enough guidance and training to them, then I think the last step of it is that uh if you did the first two steps clearly, uh following like the steps that I mentioned just now, then the last part of it is that never forget to recap their experience. Okay, so I think in terms of recapping experience is the space where they would actually start to think about what are the things that they have learned and what the experience that they have gone through. So in terms of those challenges is also, it's actually a space that for you to recap the experience and facilitate their journey so that they would be able to connect what they have experienced, like those very challenging things that they have experienced and gone through, are actually helping them in growing personally or professionally. Okay, so I think that would be the overall picture on how to make sure that people are not reaching the burnout stage and to retain them. Because if they have a very good experience, eventually they are going to stay. Okay, so for Sheen is that will a member's competency level affects team management when they take up higher roles in the future? So if I assume that if these members that with different competence level, if these members are taking a higher leadership position, would they actually affect team management, the ability to manage a team, right? If that's the case, I think definitely yes. But in terms of competency level, I'm just because I think in competency level is that there are functional skills and there are other set of competency levels like competencies which we often call it as managerial skills. And sometimes is that even though you're not very good at functional skills, but maybe like for example, maybe you are not very good at coordination, but maybe sometimes like you are good at managing a team. Okay. But for me is that if generally this competence level is referring to projects competencies, then I think projects are like the role understanding and the ability to manage the team. I think in project if okay sorry so if this higher role position is project directors, I think it matters because project directors is a role where I think it requires a lot of very ground experience. So you have to be very ground to manage and lead a team. So if your understanding towards projects is not that thorough, I think it to a certain point is that you can't handle the situation as fast as like people expect you to handle. Okay, so to maybe in to certain extent that it might affect a little bit, but that's something that you can actually build in the future. So I'm not so sure in your exact context on to what extent you mean about that. Okay, so so for Mariam is that another question is that not everyone is motivated by rewards. Are there any other ways to motivate them? Oh, okay. So I think every like there are, if you study a little bit on management, I think that's something that I studied in my first and only my management class. So basically people are driven by three factors. So one is power, one is affiliation, and another one is I'm not so sure about another one. I think one is relationship, second one is power, the third one is purpose. Okay, so okay, so I think regarding these three things is that when I'm talking about rewards, definitely the rewards doesn't mean by monetary rewards or just recognition by that, but different people will need different things. Okay, so for example, people who are driven by power, there are people that maybe they will seek for recognition. If you recognize them, they will be very happy. Okay, so if people are driven by relationship, so perhaps like the way that to reward them is actually not to recognize them, but just to telling them that how much they have contributed to the team or how much they have pulling the team together and have like contributing and making like being very useful to the team, then maybe that's the rewards that as I mentioned. And the third thing I think is also the third one is for purpose. So some people join project just based on their end objective is just to making sure that they join these one specific projects because I'm very interested in solving these specific projects issues. So if that's the case, then you just need to make sure that you just the rewards part will be reminding them that what they are doing is actually contributing to the project objective. Okay, so I think the reward part, I think the easiest way of giving rewards is actually to give recognition, but not in other ways as well. But the way of giving recognition, it can be very different also. Okay, it can be through team setting, it can be through one-to-one setting. So one-to-one setting, maybe the conversation can bring towards, like as what I mentioned just now, to actually shape it to the needs of uh to the persons, like what would drive them more. But in team setting, I think it will still be good if to let people know at least what is the good thing to do more. Okay. Okay. Yes, McLaren motivation theory. Thanks. Okay, anything else? Okay, I think okay. So I think before we end the space, can we like have five can I have like 5 minutes of time to actually fill in this link? Okay. So it would be a very short survey to understand like how much do you understand from how much do you learn from this space and how useful this space has been, and definitely feedback would be good. So if you can spend 5 minutes of the time to fill out this link, it would be great. Okay, if you have any last questions, you can actually text me. So, or your, yeah. So, do you have any last question? If you have last questions, you can put it in the chat box. Or if you feel like you have more to ask, you can actually find me on Telegram. Okay. So I'll be wait for the last 1 minute. So if there's no more questions, I will just close this space. Okay. And thanks for people that fill out the feedback form. I really appreciate that. Okay, I think that's all from me. Thank you very much for attending this space. So, uh, if you have any questions more, then I think you can refer to your favorite directors, you can refer to your VPs, or you can refer to Gina, or you can refer to me. Okay. So thanks everyone for attending this space. Bye.